Can a city be murdered? Yes, it can. Take a look. These two films depict a bird's-eye view of the capital of Poland, Warsaw, 80 years ago and today. As for the footage from the flyover done in 1945, one should be more specific though, because it by no means presents the city, but rather only what was left of it. Not much of Warsaw.
Just a testament to the mass destruction of forethought. A symbol of a civilization reduced to ground zero by the Germans.
Once a vibrant cultural center of over 1 million residents, called Paris of the North, following the suppression of the Warsaw Uprising, would become just debris in the dark, with its population expelled or murdered. This film explores the events that led to a tragedy unlike anything else in the European history.
World War II in the making. Not only did it take a tremendous toll on soldiers on both sides of the front line, brought thitherto unheard-of scale of genocide, and harnessed state-of-the-art tech into the service of mass destruction.
During this very conflict, those were the civilians who suffered supremely, with entire cities having been razed to the ground. One of them, and one that was destroyed the most, was the capital of Poland, Warsaw. It also happens to be the first capital city attacked by Germans during the World War II. Warsaw would be destroyed step by step. Step 1. Warsaw becomes the target of German forces in September 1939. Step 2. Warsaw is bombed by the Soviet Air Force in 1942. Step 3. Brutal pacification of the Warsaw Ghetto in 1943. Step 4. Warsaw Uprising and its aftermath. The final, fatal blow comes at the end of 1944, when the Germans decide to level the city through and through.
This city is to disappear from the face of the earth completely, and must serve only one goal: a transit point for Wehrmacht transportation. Not one stone is to be left on another. All buildings must be torn down to their bare foundations. Only technical infrastructure and railroad facilities are to remain intact. Undersigned Reichsführer der SS Heinrich Himmler.
This was the death sentence pronounced by the German authorities, marking an unprecedented act of destruction against Warsaw or any other city at the time. By the end of 1944, after the Home Army soldiers had left the city following the act of capitulation, with the civilians brutally forced out as well, the capital of a major European country was reduced to a sea of ruins, unfit for any form of habitation. Nearly 85% of its buildings were destroyed, 70% of which completely. This was a systematic, methodical operation aimed at erasing Warsaw from the map of the world. A punishment for the rebellion and die-hard defiance against the Third Reich. In the documentary Ground Zero 44, we will examine reasons why Warsaw became a primary target of the Nazi German regime and how the plan to obliterate the city fits into the broader German vision for Poland's future under their rule. World War I. For the first time in over a century, Polish troops, the famous legions of Marshal Józef Piłsudski, enter Warsaw. Still several more years will have to go by, with Warsaw compelled to defend itself against the Bolshevik deluge in 1920. But Poland, after 123 years,
finally reclaims its statehood annexed at the end of the 18th century by three avaricious empires: Prussia, Russia, and Austria. The Polish nation reunites its three severed regions into one. Warsaw anew becomes the capital of the sovereign Poland. In the 1920s, Warsaw begins to flourish. Once a provincial city under the Russian Empire, it transforms into a thriving Central European metropolis. The royal castle becomes the residence of the President of the Republic of Poland. By the late 1930s, Warsaw already boasts a population of over 1 million. Renowned for its beauty, it is often referred to as the Paris of the North, a nod to its resemblance to the French capital. But Warsaw manages to retain its unique Central European character, showcasing stunning Art Nouveau and neoclassical architecture, inherited after the ages of cultural and historical significance. All of this would change in 1939. Warsaw is the first capital city to be attacked during the World War II, and the first in modern history to endure deliberate terror bombing. With cold precision, German dive bombers and artillery target civilian infrastructure. Poland becomes Hitler's primary target. Warsaw is doomed to bear the brunt of his wrath. In the widely available historiography referring to the destruction of Warsaw during World War II, very common, especially outside of Poland, is a conflation of the 1944 Warsaw Uprising, the largest freedom movement of the World War II, with the 1943 Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It is often overlooked that Warsaw was deliberately demolished and burned down, particularly already after the act of capitulation at the end of 1944 and into early 1945, in the final days before the Red Army entered the city. After months of lingering on the other side of the Vistula River, idle as Warsaw and its people bled out. Additionally, there is a tendency to forget that the Red Army itself contributed to the destruction of the occupied Warsaw by bombing the city in 1942. Interestingly, the Soviet Air Force carried out these bombings using North American B-22 Mitchell bombers, which had been supplied to them as part of the American Land-Lease program. This paradoxical use, or rather a misuse, of the Allied provided equipment in the destruction of the Polish capital remains a thread of Warsaw's wartime history very poorly represented or even omitted. The first and most significant act of destruction of Warsaw, however, dates back to 1939, when in the early days of September, civilian targets were deliberately attacked by the Luftwaffe. Among the most well-known images of the besieged Warsaw are the haunting shots captured by Julian Bryan, an American documentary filmmaker who recorded a shocking account of the barbaric methods of warfare. Bryan, witnessing the German brutal attacks on Warsaw's civilian population, appealed to the world through the Polish radio, calling attention to the atrocities being committed in the Polish capital.
But we, the 42 Americans here in Warsaw, we can do little except watch and wait patiently and as bravely as we can. But I can and must speak for the Polish people over the air tonight to tell everyone in America, including you, President Roosevelt, and Secretary of State Hull, what has happened to us here and to the 35 million innocent Polish people. America must act. It must help. She must demand that this most dreadful slaughter of modern times be stopped. 130 million Americans, we ask you in the name of decency and justice and Christianity.
The way the Germans waged war in September 1939 is soon overshadowed by the other acts of terror they are bloodthirsty for from day one. Immediately after the invasion, mass executions of Polish intellectuals and anyone deemed a threat to the regime commence. An inhumane occupation ensues, with the establishment of concentration camps, including the Auschwitz, whose first victims against the common conviction are the Polish people. Then come the horrors of the Holocaust itself. Yet the world seems to have forgotten the very first war crime of World War II. Not only no one has ever been held accountable for it, but even one trial did not take place. However, it has only recently and quite fortuitously come to light that this was a crime carried out with full premeditation, of which the evidence spent 80 years in Purdue.
5 lat temu Jarosław Zieliński, warszawianista, zadzwonił do mnie i powiedział, że na eBayu w Niemczech został wystawiony zespół archiwalnych zdjęć poświęconych zburzeniu części Warszawy w 1939 roku. I że wziąłem kartę kredytową, po prostu kupiłem natychmiast w ciągu 15 minut. To nie była wojna i to nie była wojna normalna. To nie były przypadkowe zniszczenia, które przy wojnie się dzieją. No wiadomo, to tak, nie powinno się tak mówić, no ale nazwijmy tam, gdzie drwa rąbią, wióry lecą. To tak się często dzieje. Ale tutaj to nie była, jak powiedziałem, normalna wojna. Niemcy chcieli naprawdę to miasto zgładzić.
The binder Mr. Szczepański has presented contains photographic documentation taken by the Germans shortly after their entry into Warsaw. It is not a document one would come across in the labyrinthian German state archives, and indeed, for decades after the war, no one knew of its existence. What seemed to be a little-known wartime memento, passed down on posterity by an ancestor in Germany to ultimately, like many such items, emerge in an online auction, is in fact a formidable indictment of German criminal plot against Warsaw. The collection contains meticulously made documentation of civilian targets and the destruction inflicted by the Germans in September 1939.
It serves as a summary of a premeditated attack in which German aircraft and artillery targeted not only the city's infrastructure, but also key monuments of Poland's national heritage. When the war is over, as much as 22 million cubic meters of rubble from pre-war buildings is scattered across Warsaw. The city, which before the war had a population of 1.3 million, would after the war shelter in its ruins just few hundred survivors. Those few left would later be called the Robinsons, in reference to the famed eponymous survivor hero from Daniel Defoe's novel, Robinson Crusoe. One of the Robinsons was Władysław Szpilman, a Polish composer of Jewish descent, whose story was depicted in The Pianist, the Academy Award-winning film directed by Roman Polanski.
Prey to the Nazi Blitz counts its wounds, and after 6 ghastly years digs out of the havoc caused by the Luftwaffe,
it is by all means a sign that time heals all wounds, including those of a destroyed city, as fewer and fewer people seem to remember where the vast rubble of Warsaw actually went. It did not vanish. It would later form 3 huge mounds, including Poland's capital's highest acclivity, the Szczęśliwicka Mound, which stands at 152 meters above sea level and hosts a year-round ski track. The latter, along with the famous Mound of Warsaw Uprising, turned a forest museum, and the Moczylowski Mound are not traces of war destructions only, yet having become an integral part of Warsaw's landscape of memory, have ecologically served the beauty of the reborn Warsaw, and recreationally, its residents and tourists. Yet it all did not happen overnight. Here are some photos depicting the aftermath of German atrocities lingering in Warsaw.
5 years after the war, 10 years after the war, 15 years after the war, 25 years after the war. The rubble that remained of Warsaw would be cleared for years. The 22 million cubic meters of ruins could form world's highest and most massive skyscraper. Here it is in the eyes of the artist, Tymek Borowski. If the debris of Warsaw's buildings were put one on another, such a tower with a base of 1 square meter would rise up to 22,000 kilometers, an orbit even most satellites don't reach. Indeed, these shocking figures are hard to imagine, unparalleled by any other urban destruction during World War II. In Hiroshima, for instance, after the atomic bomb Little Boy was dropped, 70,000 out of the city's 76,000 buildings were destroyed. Yet at the time it was a city 4 times smaller than Warsaw. Hamburg, which as an industrial hub, major seaport and the main U-boat construction site, played a key role in Germany's aggression on Europe, was destroyed at a 60% level. When Dresden, another city of the World War II aggressor country, was in retaliation attacked by the Allied Air Force, a firestorm caused by the bombing consumed 6.5 square kilometers of the city. Warsaw, on the other hand, was obliterated up to almost 90%. This means that the innocent Warsaw, with no targets of military relevance, was one of the most devastated cities during World War II, if not the most. Still, in the general memory, strangely, these are the German cities that serve as the synonym of a burned-down agglomeration. Have a listen. What city does the view of wildfires tall in districts of Los Angeles bring to Mel Gibson's mind?
Yesterday it looked like Dresden, you know, after Bomber Harris got through with it. Yeah.
Let's be clear here. Warsaw, the capital of a victim country which attacked no one, was destroyed by German tenfold compared to Dresden, a city of an aggressor country, which, yes, was bombed, yet in retaliation. Also, the worldwide coverage of the scale of Gaza destruction after Israeli attacks is an example that even in the context of an annihilatory military action, a cataclysmically destroyed Warsaw is not a point of reference either. For media, even as prestigious as foreign affairs outlet, the World War II Cologne, Hamburg, again Dresden or London, not Warsaw, served that purpose.
Attention, attention! If you like what you saw, click the like button now. Stay tuned for more episodes of Ground Zero 44. Subscribe to know more. Subscribe to learn about the Holocaust.
There's no time for lying. Be told.
The story has to be told.
To you, to them, and another billion people. You will survive as long as you know how to deceive. Around subsidized by masses working 7 a week. Whatever, if you are worse or being better, you still got your bunch of lies to cater. However, right, like he did on September night. Your newest assignment, superhero suicide.
This story needs to be told.
To you, to them, and another trillion people.
On mission cries, I'm really willing to circumcise my cheeky side. The kill and drive that is super size. I'd keep her if you did me one favor. Show me for once, son, you are the savior.